Three for Madness. Sacramento Kings edition. Question 1.
Did the Kings make a mistake in not acquiring Jonathan Kuminga?
I mean, it sure looks like it, right? But I think it's nuanced because the question could be, wow, is Jonathan Kuminga in a very short, 3-game cycle looking like he would have been a great pickup for the Kings? Yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. As a matter of fact, Atlanta Hawks fans yesterday were chanting "Thank you, Warriors" while Kuminga was at the line. And again, in a very, very short time span, he has scored 27, 17, and then last night 20 points, averaging 7.5 boards, 3 assists, couple of steals on insane and unsustainable splits of about 70, 53, and 80.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not gonna hold up. Now, this is not, I don't think people are looking at that and going, well, that's an impossible thing for him to do, because there's been flashes, and we saw that mainly flash last year in the playoffs when, due to injury, he was forced into that series against Minnesota, and he scored 7, 18, 30, 23, and 26 points after scoring a total of 18 against Houston in the quarterfinals in the first round. But when I wrote the question, was it a mistake? Here's the caveat, I think, Jason. Would Jonathan Kuminga would I be excited to have him on the Kings? Yeah. And is it so far, again, in a very limited sample size? Is he looking like the future potential star that the Warriors kind of buried? Yeah, you can see that. But I don't know that they made a mistake, because I don't know what was being asked for from the Kings, and was there a mistake to be made by Scott Perry, or did they ever? We talked about it over the summer. I very much remember it was July-ish, and quite frankly, I feel comfortable talking about this now. Do I feel comfortable talking about this now? Yes, I feel comfortable talking about this. Should I feel comfortable talking about it?
I don't know.
Okay. Somebody was leaking information from inside the Kings that was not right. It was patently not right. It wasn't Scott Perry. And I think there were people that were getting those leaks. And this is where it's really delicate, because I'm just going to use an example that didn't happen that's super outlandish. But let's say that I came on tomorrow and I said, I've learned that the Kings are not going to re-sign Russ, and they're going to release DeMar at the end of the season, and they're also going to buy out Zach LaVine, and they expect to trade Domantas Sabonis by the end of the summer.
Okay.
And none of that happens. Mm-hmm. But my inside source was Vivek Ranadive. Like, I'm just thinking of, I'm using Vivek because he's you would think the most unimpeachable. If you had a direct line to Vivek and he's like, yeah, here's what we're going to do. Just, you can report it, but just on background, right? Well, I'm going to look like a wiener schnitzel, obviously. I'm going to look like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm going to look like an idiot. And I'm doing this to defend anyone in the media that was reporting on this Kuminga thing in the summer. I don't blame them, because I think I know who they were talking to, and no, I won't share that. And I don't blame them. It's like, I can't come out and say, but Vivek told me this. Mm-hmm. I can't say that. I just have to eat it. But you can't blame me for reporting it. I got it from a great source.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, because, and what I'm talking about specifically is there was a very short period this summer, over a 2-3 day, maybe 4 day period. I remember this because I was not here, and you and I were talking about it a lot. But I was doing the July vacation, And I remember spending a lot of time on this with you and others because we were perplexed. Because a lot of the reporting, like in particular, one was like, he's expected, this deal is expected to be done by, I think it was expected to be done by this Sunday, or would be shocked if it wasn't done by this Sunday. And you had some pretty big names here in town, maybe not saying he was coming here, but saying like, it's pretty much like, this is where it's going. And all we're hearing is they're talking, but they're talking to a lot of people and nothing is even close to done. And I say that because I don't want Kings fans to think that like Perry was on the verge of the Jonathan Kuminga acquisition for the Sacramento Kings was never as close as it was reported by some, both locally and nationally. And I don't blame them. I really don't blame them for reporting that. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
Did he make a mistake? I don't think he made a mistake necessarily.
Who's he in this?
Perry. Mm-hmm. But time will tell too, because here's the thing: if Jonathan Kuminga ends up averaging, 25, 8 and 8, and has a great career, well then yeah, he made a mistake. He should have offered whatever the hell it would have took, including a future unprotected first round pick. But that wasn't going to fly right now, and he has to err on the side of caution when it comes to that type of thing. So I don't think it was a mistake, at least not now, but boy, Kuminga sure would. It would be nice to have that as a bright spot towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I guess it's always in how you look at things. I agree with you in the sense that we don't know exactly what the deal was, but I think one area, it depends on how you look at things. How about if you look at it this way and you say, was it a mistake? Well, they didn't get him, but then you go, how has he looked on another team? Maybe the instincts were right, though.
Yeah.
The fact that the player they were interested in looks to be a player they should have been interested in. We're not going, man, good thing they didn't get Kuminga. It's more of, man, it's too bad they didn't get Kuminga. So I think the instincts on their desire, their very public desire to get him at this moment look like they were the right instincts. So I think that's a good thing. It doesn't mean the next one they get right, or that, these are difficult things we've talked about how difficult it is to be a GM, to get more of your decisions on the right side of it. And I think this one would have been, but what was the cost? And also, the other part is, were the Warriors even going to do it? Sometimes some teams' instincts are like, you know what? They're in our division. They're in the West. They're right here. Like, if he goes to that team and very front-facing in front of us goes off, like 80 miles away, like, is this what we want? Now, if he goes off in Atlanta, it's like, all right, he goes off in Atlanta, but they won't see it as much,
That's why you generally don't see, like, when a trade is rumored between the Kings and Warriors, or especially Kings-Lakers, it almost never happens. And longtime Kings fans will remember, Billy Owens, Mitch Richmond, that type of thing. But we're going back 30 years for stuff like that. Also, and not that Kuminga is a star, at least not yet, but the old adage is, if a star or superstar type player is up for a trade, there's a 90-something, I don't have the numbers, but I'll bet you it's in the low 90s, if not mid-90s, % chance that that star will go to a separate conference. Right. It almost always happens that way. You had what? Kawhi go from the Spurs to Toronto, and then Toronto to the Clippers. You had Harden. I mean, how many times has he switched conferences? You had Donovan Mitchell go from Utah to Cleveland. I'm trying to think of other. Honestly, the one that bucks that trend recently, to be honest with you, is Luka Doncic. That's damn near unprecedented for that to happen. But again, we know that was, or we think that was a little bit strange.
Yeah, but even though that one would be, imagine Luka going from Dallas to San Antonio. Dallas to Houston.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah.
Lastly on that, I had to go back and look at the deal. Would you have been comfortable and understanding that there would have had to been more involved for salary purposes? Not a ton more, but more. Would you have been okay with the Kings acquiring Jonathan Kuminga straight up for it wouldn't have been straight up, but Kuminga and whoever salary filler for Domantas Sabonis?
I would have really entertained that, yes, definitely.
With the Warriors acquiring Kristaps Porzingis for Kuminga and Buddy Hield. Now, Porzingis makes about $12 million a year less than Sabonis, and he's an expiring contract. But at the same time, I don't know this, but it certainly doesn't appear that the Warriors are going to hold on to Porzingis, unless, of course, he's willing to sign. Sounds like Porzingis needs to worry about his career playing
life
next
and
year.
his own health, yeah.
Whereas Sabonis would have given that would have been entertaining just in itself to have Sabonis and Draymond Green on the same team. How does that first? I bet you. We always talk about that stuff. I bet you the first interaction would have been, "Hey, man, we're on the same team now. I got your back."
Yeah.
But it would have
That's
been.
the past. Yeah.
Past is in the past. Number 2, please.